I am Michael Harper, 47 years old, a major in the United States Army. For over 2 decades I've traversed the scorching deserts of Iraq, the frigid bases of Eastern Europe, and sleepless nights in Afghanistan, where the sound of gunfire and the smell of gunpowder became my companions. I survived battles that many didn't, earning the Silver Star for leading my team through an ambush, saving 12 comrades and 2 civilians. But no medal could prepare me for the text I received 3 days before I was set to leave the base to return home for Christmas. I was in my private quarters at the base, packing carefully chosen gifts for my family. A pearl necklace for Sarah, my wife, who was once the light in my darkest days. A personalized folding knife for Nathan, my 22-year-old son, whom I barely know anymore. And a set of science fiction books for Lily, my 16-year-old daughter, who still writes me handwritten letters full of youthful dreams. I had counted the days until I could return to Silverton, Oregon, the small coastal town where I grew up, where I once thought I had a complete family. This would be the first Christmas in nearly a decade I'd spend with them. I imagined us gathered by the fireplace, Lily's laughter, Sarah's gentle smile, and maybe, just maybe, a nod of approval from Nathan. Then my phone buzzed, a text from Sarah. I opened it, expecting a question about my flight, or a reminder to bring a warm coat because Silverton's weather is cold, but there were only 10 words, short and sharp like a blade. Don't come home, Mike. We don't need you here. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the latest video. I sat there, on the stiff iron bed at the base, staring at the screen as if it would change if I looked long enough. 10 words. Just 10 words, but they pierced my chest like a bullet, leaving a painful void. Sarah, the woman I've loved since I was a 22-year-old boy, who sat by me through long nights before I deployed, who cried when she saw me off the first time. Sarah, whom I always thought would be my home, no matter where I was in the world. Now she was telling me not to come back. I wanted to call her right away, to ask why, but my hands trembled and memories flooded back. The early years of our marriage, when Sarah and I lived in a small apartment in Silverton, laughing about saving every penny to buy toys for Nathan. The letters she sent while I was in Iraq, filled with love and fear that I wouldn't return. But over the years the letters dwindled. The calls became brief, cold. I thought it was the price of being a soldier, the distance, the gaps time couldn't fill. I typed back one word, fine, a word that held 2 decades of hurt, anger and acceptance, that some things can't be fixed, no matter how hard I try. I didn't know what had changed Sarah, but I knew I needed to find out. I couldn't sit here, in the middle of a military base, pretending everything was okay. I faced enemies on the battlefield, learned to stay calm when bombs exploded meters away. Surely, I could face whatever awaited me in Silverton. I recalled a night in Afghanistan, when Captain John Carter, my closest friend in the Army, and I sat under a starry sky, sharing a cigarette. Harper, John once said, family is the only thing worth fighting for, but it's also the thing that can hurt you the most. Back then, I brushed it off, thinking he was exaggerating. But now, John's words echoed in my mind. My family, Sarah, Nathan, Lily, was the reason I survived those years. But if they didn't want me back, what was I fighting for? I stood up, repacked the gifts into my bag. The pearl necklace glinted under the light, a reminder of days gone by. I wasn't sure what I was seeking by returning to Silverton, reconciliation, the truth, or just an explanation, but I knew I couldn't turn away. I had booked my flight, and I would go, not to the grand Harper family home, where Sarah and the kids were living, but to a small cabin I rented near Silverton's coast. A place where I could stand at a distance, observe, and figure out what had made the woman I love reject me. As I checked my bag one last time, another memory surfaced. It was the last Christmas I spent at home, 10 years ago. Sarah had made cinnamon rolls. Nathan was tiny, running around the Christmas tree, and Lily, then just 6, fell asleep in my arms. I thought that was happiness, that no matter how far I went, I'd always have a place to return to. But now, I wasn't so sure. I only knew that, no matter what Sarah said, Silverton was still my home. I slipped my phone into my pocket, turned off the light, and left the room. The plane would take off in the morning. Silverton was waiting for me, with its secrets, its hurts, and perhaps, a chance to find myself again. The plane landed at a small airport on the outskirts of Silverton on a cold morning, with fog still clinging to the snow-covered hills. I pulled up the collar of my army coat, breathing in the salty air of the sea, a scent I once thought would always mean home. But today, Silverton felt like a new battlefield. No gunfire, just secrets hidden behind the twinkling Christmas lights on the streets. I didn't go to the grand Harper family home, where Sarah and the kids were living. Instead, I drove a rental car to a small cabin near the coast, a few miles from town. A place close enough to observe, far enough to keep a safe distance. The cabin emerged amid pine trees, simple with a snow-covered wooden roof and an old fireplace. I opened the door, set my bag on the creaky wooden floor, and quickly checked the space, a habit from my years in combat zones. A small living room with a worn armchair, a basic kitchen, and a bedroom overlooking the sea. Not luxurious, but clean and quiet. On my first day in Silverton, I drove into town to buy supplies. The main street had changed a lot from my memories. Old shops had given way to trendy cafes and bakeries adorned with Christmas lights. The Central Park, where I used to play baseball with friends, now had a new fountain, sparkling in the winter sunlight. But something felt familiar. The smell of cinnamon rolls from Silver Brew, the distant chime of church bells. I parked in front of a small grocery store, Coastal Market, and walked in. Mike Harper? A familiar voice called out as I was choosing between two cereal brands. I turned to see Claire Morgan, my high school friend, standing there with a shopping basket. Claire still had her curly hair, now shorter, and her eyes held a mix of tiredness and joy. "My God, when did you get back? Are you staying for good or just visiting?" "Just got in today," I replied, forcing a smile. "Only here through Christmas." I kept my words vague on purpose. Claire didn't need to know I wasn't staying at the family home, that my wife had told me not to come, but she looked at me, her gaze sharp as ever, as if she could read my thoughts. "You're not staying at the Harper house, are you?" Claire asked, her voice lowering. "I ran into Sarah last week at the pharmacy. She didn't mention you coming back." I shrugged, feeling another stab. Last-minute decision. But Claire wasn't easily fooled. She tilted her head, studying me like a commander assessing the situation before a battle. "Something's going on, isn't it, Mike? Harper Enterprises has been acting strange lately. I heard they landed some big military contracts, but there are bad rumors. Do you know anything?" I stiffened. Harper Enterprises, Sarah's family's construction company, founded by her father and now partly managed by her. I never cared much about the company. I chose the army over taking it over, which angered Sarah's father years ago. But rumors of military contracts made me uneasy. "What kind of rumors?" I asked. Claire hesitated, glancing around as if afraid someone might overhear. "Just that they won bids with unusually low prices. Some local contractors were cut out of big projects with no explanation. My dad used to work with Harper Enterprises, but they suddenly dropped his contract a few years ago. No one knows why." I nodded, trying to stay calm, but my mind was racing. Military contracts. Those require high-level security clearances, something I, with over 20 years in the Army, possess. Could Sarah be involved in this? Could that be why she didn't want me back? That evening, I called my mother, Margaret Harper, the only family member who supported me when I enlisted. She lived in a small house a few miles from town, where she tended her garden and wrote me letters throughout my years away. "I heard you're back," she said over the phone, her voice warm but worried. "Why aren't you at my place?" "I need some space, Mom," I replied, avoiding mention of Sarah's text. "Do you know anything about Sarah lately? Is she okay?" She was silent for a moment, too long for me not to notice something was off. "Sarah's changed, Mike. She works day and night at Harper Enterprises, always stressed. I don't know the details, but something's not right. Are you going to see her?" "I don't know yet," I said, feeling like I was stepping into a minefield. "I'll figure it out." The next morning, as I drove through town, I noticed a black SUV parked a few hundred meters from the cabin. It didn't look like a local's car. Too sleek, too expensive. I slowed down, watching it in my rearview mirror. The SUV started, following me at a careful distance. My military instincts kicked in. I made a sharp turn onto a side road, sped up, then stopped in a narrow alley. The SUV didn't reappear, but I knew I wasn't imagining it. Someone was watching me. I returned to the cabin, my mind spinning. Sarah's text, the rumors about Harper Enterprises, the mysterious SUV, they were all connected, but I couldn't see the full picture yet. I grabbed my phone, wanting to call Captain John Carter, my friend at the base, to ask if anyone had checked my security clearance. But I stopped. If Sarah was involved in something serious, I needed proof first. I couldn't let emotions override reason. Not now. On the third morning in Silverton, I woke to the cold seeping through the cabin's windows. Sarah didn't want me at the house, but I still had Nathan and Lily, my two kids I'd missed too many years of. I needed to see them, if only to know they were okay or to understand why their mother wanted to push me away. I drove into town, stopping at Coastal Brew, a small coffee shop Claire mentioned yesterday. The shop sat at the corner of Main Street, its windows fogged with steam and the faint smell of cinnamon rolls wafting out. I walked in, chose a table by the window to watch the street. Silverton was livelier than I remembered, with locals shopping for Christmas gifts and kids pulling sleds. I was reading the menu when a familiar figure walked in. Nathan, my son, 22 years old, tall but with something heavy in his stride. He wore a thick coat, his hair disheveled, and his sleep-deprived eyes scanned the shop before landing on me. "Dad?" Nathan said, his voice a mix of surprise and caution. He stood there, as if unsure whether to approach or leave. I stood, forcing a smile. Nathan, it's been a while. Can you sit with me for a bit? He hesitated, then pulled out a chair and sat down, keeping just enough distance to maintain a barrier. Mom didn't say you were coming back, he said, eyes fixed on his coffee cup. Why are you here? I wanted to tell him about Sarah's text, about the sting of betrayal, but I held back. I wanted to see you and Lily. This Christmas, I thought it was time for us to be a family again. Nathan gave a faint, humorless laugh. A family? You've been gone for a decade, and now you show up thinking things can go back to how they were? His words were sharp, like a cut, and I realized the resentment had been simmering in him for years. I remembered Nathan as a kid, always trailing after me, begging me to teach him how to throw a baseball. Now, he looked at me like a stranger. I know I've been gone a long time, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, but I want to make things right. What are you doing at Harper Enterprises? Claire said the company's in trouble. Nathan stiffened, his eyes darting to the door as if afraid someone might overhear. It's just work. Mom handles most of it, and I just do what she tells me. Sign some papers, meet some clients. He paused, then added, his voice lower, but yeah, there are problems. Mom's stressed out, always in closed-door meetings with Victor Crane. Who's Victor Crane? I asked, a sense of unease rising. A business partner. He came to the company a few years ago, brought in some big contracts, but Nathan hesitated, as if afraid to say too much. He's not a good guy, Dad. I don't know the details, but Mom's scared of him. I nodded, committing the name Victor Crane to memory. The conversation with Nathan didn't last long. He stood up, said he had a meeting, and left with a cold nod. I stayed behind feeling like I'd just lost a battle I wasn't prepared for. But at least I knew Nathan was working at Harper Enterprises, and the name Victor Crane was a new lead. That afternoon, I drove to the Central Park, where I used to play as a kid. I saw Lily sitting on a wooden bench, a science fiction book open on her lap, her blonde hair tied high and swaying in the cold breeze. The little girl, no, the young woman, looked up as I approached, and her radiant smile warmed my heart. Dad, Lily rushed to hug me, so tightly I had to remind myself not to get too emotional. I didn't know you were back. Why didn't you call? It's a long story, sweetheart, I said, sitting beside her. How are you? How's Mom and Nathan? Lily hesitated, her smile fading. Mom, she's not okay. She locks herself in her office a lot, talking on the phone in a stressed voice. I heard her mention you a few times, but it wasn't clear. And Nathan's been grumpy all the time, like he hates the world. She looked at me, her eyes bright with worry. Dad, something's wrong, isn't it? Why aren't you at home? I didn't want to scare Lily, but I couldn't lie either. I'm figuring some things out. Your mom, she told me not to come back, but I wanted to see you and Nathan. I want to know what's going on. Lily nodded, but her eyes suggested she knew more than she let on. I saw Mom leave a stack of papers in her office. Your name was on them, but she wouldn't let me look. She said it was grown-up stuff. A chill ran down my spine. Papers with my name? Related to Harper Enterprises. I recalled Claire's words about military contracts, and suspicion began to form. Could Sarah be using my security clearance, the one I earned in the Army, for the company? The thought made me sick, but I needed proof. That evening, I called Captain John Carter, my close friend from the base. I used the Army's secure line, not daring to risk my personal phone. John, have you ever heard of anyone asking about my security clearance, related to a construction company, maybe Harper Enterprises? John was silent for a moment, then answered, his voice grave. There were a few requests to verify your clearance a few years back. I thought it was routine since you have family in the construction business. But if you didn't know, Mike, this is serious. You need to check it out now. I hung up, my heart pounding. Sarah, Harper Enterprises, Victor Crane. They were all connected, but I still couldn't see the full picture. I looked out the cabin window where the Christmas lights from town twinkled in the distance. Silverton used to be home, but now it felt like a maze of secrets. I knew I needed to confront Sarah, but first I had to protect Nathan and Lily. They were why I came back, and I wouldn't let anyone, not even my wife, hurt them. On the fourth morning in Silverton, I woke with a steely resolve. I drove to the Silverton Public Library, an old building with wooden shelves and the smell of aged paper. The Christmas spirit seeped through pine wreaths on the doors and twinkling lights by the windows, but I wasn't in the mood to appreciate it. I sat in a secluded corner, opened my laptop, and began searching for information on Harper Enterprises. Local articles from a few years ago showed the company had shifted heavily from commercial construction to military contracts, projects building barracks, armories, and training centers. Contract values skyrocketed, from a few million to tens of millions of dollars, prompting complaints from local competitors about irregular bidding processes. An article from the Silverton Gazette mentioned other contractors being excluded from projects without clear reasons, and rumors of a special relationship between Harper Enterprises and certain federal officials. Then I found a detail that made my blood run cold. A press release from 4 years ago declared Harper Enterprises had earned special status for military contracts due to veteran leadership with high-level security clearance. Veteran leadership. Harper Enterprises had no one who'd served in the military, except me. I'd never worked for the company, never signed any papers related to them. But my security clearance, earned through my years in Iraq and Afghanistan, was the kind only a few officers held. Could Sarah have? No, I didn't want to believe she'd do that. But the suspicion grew, like an old wound reopening. I closed the laptop, feeling the library's air grow stifling. I needed confirmation. I grabbed my phone and called John Carter again on the Army's secure line. John, can you dig deeper into those requests to verify my security clearance? I asked, keeping my voice low so no one could hear. Specifically from Harper Enterprises about 4 or 5 years ago. John answered immediately, his tone serious. Mike, I checked after our last call. There were 3 requests to verify your clearance, all from a construction company in Oregon, routed through a third party. I thought it was standard procedure, but if you didn't sign anything, there's a big problem. You need to report this now. I hung up, my heart racing. Someone had used my identity, my clearance, to help Harper Enterprises secure contracts. And Sarah, who managed much of the company's operations, had to know. That evening I drove back to the cabin, my mind swirling with questions. As I pulled up to the entrance, a folded white paper tucked under the windshield wiper caught my attention. I glanced around. The forest was pitch black, only the sound of waves crashing in the distance. I stepped out, grabbed the paper, and opened it under the cabin's dim light. The handwriting, sharp and neat, read, "Veterans should know when to retreat." I recognized it instantly. It matched Sarah's handwriting from the letters she sent me when I was in Iraq. But how could it be? Sarah wouldn't threaten me. Not like this. Or had I stopped knowing her altogether? I entered the cabin, locked the door, and checked everything as a military habit. Windows, locks, porch light, all secure. But the paper in my hand felt like 1,000 pounds. It wasn't just a warning, it was proof I was on the right track. Someone, Sarah, Victor Crane, or both, didn't want me digging further. I sat at the table, staring at the gifts still there, the pearl necklace, the knife, the books. I'd bought them hoping to mend my family, but now they felt like relics of a past that no longer existed. I texted John Carter again, asking for copies of the clearance verification requests. If Harper Enterprises had forged my signature, I needed concrete proof. But deep down, I feared what I'd uncover. If Sarah was truly behind this, if she'd betrayed me to save the company, then the family I'd fought to protect for 2 decades might just be an illusion. I texted Sarah, proposing a meeting at Highway Diner, a small eatery outside town, about 30 minutes from Silverton. It was discreet enough that no one we knew would spot us, and I wanted a frank conversation, uninterrupted. Sarah agreed, her text curt, 11 a.m. alone. I arrived early, choosing a corner booth where I could watch both entrances in the parking lot. A military habit that never left me. The diner had a Christmas vibe, with red wreaths on the walls and jingle bells playing softly over the speakers, but I felt no warmth. Sarah walked in at exactly 11 a.m., as elegant as ever in a camel coat and a pearl-colored scarf. But I noticed the signs of stress right away. Dark circles under her eyes, a slight tremble in her hands as she removed her gloves. She sat across from me, no smile, no greeting. "What do you want, Mike?" she asked, her voice low but sharp. "Did you send this?" I slid the threatening note across the table. My eyes locked on her. Sarah looked at it, her face paling, but she shook her head. "I didn't write that," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Who gave it to you? It doesn't matter. What matters is why you don't want me home, Sarah. And why Harper Enterprises is using my security clearance to win military contracts I never knew about." Sarah froze, her eyes flicking to the door as if afraid someone might overhear. "You don't understand, Mike. It's more complicated than you think." "Then explain," I said, my voice calm but firm. "Because right now I'm thinking you forged my signature, committed federal fraud, and dragged Nathan into it." Sarah blinked, as if I'd struck her. She lowered her head, her hands twisting the scarf tightly. "I didn't want this," she whispered. "It was all because of Victor Crane. He came to the company 4 years ago, offering a chance to win big military contracts. My father, he'd nearly bankrupted the company. I had to save it, for Nathan, for Lily. Victor said we needed a security clearance, and I signed some documents with your name." My blood boiled, but I stayed silent, letting her continue. "I thought you'd never find out," Sarah went on, her voice trembling. "Victor promised everything would be fine, but then he started pressuring me. He had proof, the documents I signed, and threatened to go to the police if I didn't comply. I sent that text because I was scared you'd ruin everything, Mike. I just wanted to protect our family. Protect our family." I couldn't hold back anymore, my voice rising higher than intended. "You used my identity, dragged me into a fraud, and call that protection? Did you ever think I could lose everything? My career, my honor, even my freedom, if this got out?" Sarah lowered her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I didn't know what else to do," she whispered. Victor left me no choice. I wanted to believe her, wanted to believe the woman I once loved was still somewhere inside her. But the betrayal was too great, and I couldn't ignore it. I'm reporting this, Sarah, I said. I can't let you and Victor destroy what I've built. She looked up, eyes panicked. Don't, Mike. Victor's not just a businessman. He's connected to dangerous people. If you go after him, you'll put Nathan and Lily in danger. The meeting ended in silence. Sarah left, leaving me with a storm of emotions. I drove back to the cabin, my mind in turmoil. Sarah was coerced, but she still chose to betray me. Who was Victor Crane, and how powerful was he? I needed more concrete evidence to protect myself and my kids. That afternoon, my mother, Margaret, showed up at the cabin door, holding a stack of old documents. I found these in a safe at the old Harper Enterprises office, she said, her gaze resolute. I know you're investigating, Mike, and I won't let my son fight alone. I opened the documents, my heart pounding. Inside were military contracts with my signature, no, forged signatures, on applications for security clearances, contractor registrations, and meeting minutes, all dated when I was in Afghanistan, unable to sign anything. How did you get these? I asked, stunned. Margaret gave a faint smile. I built that house with your father. I know all its secrets, including the safe. She took my hand. Sarah was manipulated by Victor, but she was wrong to drag you into this. You need to do what's right, even if it hurts. That evening, Nathan and Lily showed up at the cabin unexpectedly. Nathan looked exhausted, while Lily clutched a notebook, her eyes red. I overheard Mom talking to Victor, Lily said, her voice trembling. He knows you're here. He told Mom to stop you, or the whole family would be in trouble. Dad, I'm sorry, Nathan said, looking me in the eye for the first time. I signed some papers for Mom, but I didn't know they involved you. I just wanted to make her happy. I hugged them both, feeling like I'd reclaimed a piece of the family I'd lost. It's okay, I said. We'll fix this together. I contacted Captain John Carter again through the Army's secure line. John, I have proof, I said, my voice low but firm. Forged signatures on military contracts. I need JAG Corps to step in. John promised to forward the documents to military and federal investigators but warned, Mike, if this company is tied to powerful people, you're walking into dangerous territory. Be careful. The next morning I met a team of federal investigators at a temporary office on the outskirts of Silverton. Major Lisa Nguyen, a JAG Corps lawyer, led the meeting. I laid out everything, Sarah's text, the thread on my windshield, the documents from my mother, and what Nathan and Lily had revealed. Lisa flipped through the pages, her eyes sharp. This is clear evidence of identity fraud and federal misconduct, she said. But if Victor Crane is linked to larger organizations, like money laundering through military contracts, we're dealing with a more complex case. You need to stay in Silverton and assist us, Major Harper. I nodded, feeling like I was back on a battlefield. Only this time the enemy lurked in the shadows. Lisa asked me to stay quiet, avoiding contact with Sarah or anyone at Harper Enterprises until they finished analyzing the documents. But I knew Victor Crane was aware of my presence. He wouldn't sit idle. That night I drove back to the cabin after a long day at the federal office. The forest road was pitch black, with only my headlights cutting through the fog. As I turned onto the narrow path to the cabin, a figure darted from the bushes, slamming into my car door. I slammed on the brakes, my heart racing, military instincts kicking in. I opened the door, pulling the folding knife from my pocket, not an ideal weapon but enough for defense. Who's there? I shouted, scanning the darkness. No answer, just the sound of footsteps crunching rapidly through the snow. I gave chase, my boots sinking into the cold snow, but the attacker vanished into the forest. I returned to the car, checking the damage, a large dent in the door, but nothing worse. Clearly this was another warning, and this time it wasn't on paper. Victor Crane, or his people, was trying to drive me out of Silverton. The next morning, I contacted Emma Larson, an investigative reporter from the Silverton Gazette, introduced by Claire. Emma agreed to meet me at a small bar, Anchor's Rest, where Christmas lights hung above the counter, and the smell of local beer mixed with burning wood. Emma, a woman around 40 with short hair and sharp eyes, placed a stack of documents on the table. I've been tracking Harper Enterprises for over a year, she said, her voice low. Victor Crane isn't just an investor. He's tied to a money laundering network, using military contracts to move illegal funds. But I need solid proof to go public. I told Emma about the forged documents and the attack last night. She nodded, unsurprised. Crane knows you're here. He's paid off some local officials to cover his tracks, but if you have evidence, we can take him down. Emma handed me a USB with leaked emails from Harper Enterprises, mentioning MH's security clearance, my initials. I can't publish this alone, she said. But if you work with the feds, I can help spread the story. I agreed to share information with Emma, but asked her to keep it quiet until the investigators were done. As I left the bar, I noticed the familiar black SUV parked a few blocks away. I didn't look back, but the feeling of being watched sent a chill down my spine. I'd faced danger on the battlefield, but this time, the enemy knew too much about me and my family. Back at the cabin, I checked the doors and windows, ensuring everything was locked tight. I called Lily, telling her to be careful and stay away from the Harper Enterprises office. "I'm okay, Dad," she said, her voice worried. "But Mom, she just had a fight with Victor on the phone." I heard her crying. I reassured Lily, promising to protect her and Nathan, but inside I knew I was racing against time. That morning, I received a text from Major Lisa Nguyen of JAG Corps. "We've analyzed the emails and documents, Mike. There's enough evidence to arrest Victor Crane for fraud and money laundering. But we need you to draw his attention so the feds can set up the takedown. Are you ready?" I replied instantly. "Ready." I'd led teams through the most dangerous war zones. A guy like Victor couldn't make me back down. I arranged to meet Victor at Harper Enterprises' main office, a modern glass building on the edge of Silverton, where Christmas lights still twinkled on the windows despite the icy atmosphere inside. I walked in, carrying copies of the forged documents, ready to confront him. Victor was waiting in the conference room, a tall man with a smug smile and cold eyes. "Major Harper," he said, his voice smooth, "I hear you're good at stirring up trouble." "I'm better at finding the truth," I replied, placing the documents on the table. "Like how you forged my signature to win military contracts. And these emails." I pushed Emma's USB toward him. "Show you're using Harper Enterprises to launder money." "Game's over, Crane." Victor laughed loudly, but I saw his hand clench. "You're smarter than I thought, Harper, but you don't know who you're dealing with. The people behind me won't let you ruin everything." Before I could respond, the conference room door swung open. Sarah walked in, her face pale, eyes red as if she'd been crying. "Mike, you shouldn't be here," she said, her voice trembling. "Victor, stop it. I'll tell him everything." "Sarah, shut up," Victor growled, but she ignored him, turning to me. "I was wrong, Mike," she said, tears streaming down. "Victor forced me to sign those documents. He threatened to destroy the company, to hurt Nathan and Lily if I didn't comply. I thought I was protecting our family, but I betrayed you. I'm sorry." I wanted to be angry, to yell about the betrayal, but seeing Sarah, the woman who once meant everything to me, standing there, trembling and broken, I only felt pain. "Why didn't you tell me, Sarah? I could have helped." "I was scared," she whispered. "Victor has more influence than you think. He has people in the local government." Before I could reply, the conference room door burst open again. Federal agents stormed in, guns trained on Victor. "Victor Crane, you're under arrest for federal fraud, money laundering and bribery," an agent declared. Victor struggled but was quickly subdued. As he was led away, he turned back to Sarah, his eyes menacing. "You'll regret this," he snarled. After Victor was taken away, Sarah and I sat in the now quiet office. She told me everything. Victor had approached Harper Enterprises when the company was near bankruptcy, promising military contracts would save it. He knew about my security clearance through a corrupt official and coerced Sarah into forging my signature to secure the contracts. When the feds started investigating, Victor threatened to pin it all on her if she spoke up. "I thought I had no choice," Sarah said, her voice choked. "But I was wrong, Mike. I hurt you." I didn't know what to say. The truth hurt, but at least it was out. "We'll make this right," I said, "but you have to work with the feds, and we need to talk to Nathan and Lily." That afternoon I returned to the cabin where Nathan and Lily were waiting with my mother, Margaret. I told them everything, holding nothing back. Nathan bowed his head, his voice hoarse. "I'm sorry for not saying anything, Dad. I saw Mom stressed but I didn't dare ask." Lily hugged me, her tears soaking my shirt. "I just want our family back," she said. I held them both, feeling like I'd reclaimed a part of myself. "We'll get through this," I promised, knowing the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Major Lisa Nguyen called me that evening, confirming Victor Crane was in custody and my documents were enough to fully clear my name. Harper Enterprises would be placed under court oversight, facing heavy fines that could lead to bankruptcy. But more importantly, my honor and career were intact. "You did the right thing, Major Harper," Lisa said, "but your family will need time to heal." Christmas dinner at my mother's house, Margaret's, was a simple affair, far from the lavish parties the Harper family once hosted. Her small home on the outskirts of Silverton glowed with Christmas lights and the warm smell of cinnamon rolls. Sarah brought a tray of traditional cookies. Nathan contributed a case of local beer, and Lily decorated the table with handmade paper wreaths. The atmosphere was still tinged with tension, but for the first time in years, I felt a spark of hope. Sarah sat across from me, her eyes softer, though still marked by regret. She was cooperating with federal investigators, and though she faced legal consequences, she said she wanted to make amends. "I was wrong, Mike," she whispered as we washed dishes after dinner. "But I want to find myself again, for Nathan and Lily." I nodded, not fully ready to forgive, but willing to give her a chance. Nathan, more open for the first time, talked about his plans to study again to manage the company under court supervision. Lily, with her radiant smile, gave me a handmade notebook filled with lines about her dream of becoming a teacher. "I want to make you proud," she said, and I hugged her, feeling like I'd reclaimed a piece of my heart. My mother, always my rock, looked at us with a satisfied gaze. "Family isn't perfect, Mike," she said, as we sat on the porch, watching the snow fall gently. "It's what you build through love and truth, even when it hurts." Now, I was learning to trust in family again. I reflected on my journey, from Sarah's cold text to the fight against Victor Crane. "Fine," the word I texted back to her, wasn't just acceptance. It was a declaration of independence, giving me the strength to face the truth. I realized family isn't just blood, it's the people who stand by me. Mom, Lily, Nathan, and even Claire, Emma, and John Carter. As spring approached, I weighed my future: continue in the Army or stay in Silverton, building a program to support veterans. Whatever I chose, I knew I no longer needed anyone's approval to feel whole. I had found myself, and that was the greatest Christmas gift. The story of Mike Harper and I was coming home for Christmas after years of military service, but just days before my wife sent, reflects the real challenges many Americans face in balancing personal duty, family loyalty, and societal pressures in today's U.S. culture. Mike, a veteran Army major, returns to Silverton, Oregon, only to face rejection from his wife Sarah and uncover fraud at Harper Enterprises, where his security clearance was misused. Mike's journey, from the pain of Sarah's betrayal, confronting Victor Crane, to rebuilding ties with his children Nathan and Lily, offers a profound lesson about facing truth and restoring trust in fractured relationships. A key lesson is the importance of honest communication in family, a core value in American culture, where personal relationships are often prioritized. Additionally, Mike's journey underscores that family isn't just blood, it's those who stand by you, like his mother, Margaret, or friends like Claire and Emma. In modern American society where many move far from home for work or service, building a chosen family from friends and community is a way to overcome loneliness. Finally, Mike's strength through the word "fine" reminds us that sometimes, accepting rejection is the first step to discovering self-worth, a lesson that resonates with America's spirit of independence. If my journey touched your heart, subscribe to the channel to explore more stories of courage and family. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video.